I'm sorry for going quickly, but I've only got 15 minutes worth of recording time, so I'm going to have to go a little bit quick. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So, what I got going on is I have a problem that we're going to be solving, and these problems are going to be where we have to show our work. There is no excuse around it. We have to show our work today. And not just that, but we have to describe the steps that we took. So, I'm going to go ahead and do that out loud. First off, I look at this and I realize I needed to do the parentheses first. And how do I do that? Well, I need to distribute this 3 into these parentheses and across on the other side, the 2 into these parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and type what I see just now. 3 times 2x is going to give me 6x, which is going to be plus the 15, which happens when you multiply 3 times 5, plus the 3 equals 2 times x gives me 2x, plus 3 times 2 is 6, plus 6x, because it comes after the parentheses, plus 4 comes after that 6x. All right, things are great now. Now that's a little bit long, so I can go ahead and start simplifying some things together. Now on the left side of the equal sign, I got plus 15 and plus 3. On the right side of the equal sign, I've got 2x that I can add to the 6x, and I've also got my plus 6 and my plus 4 that I can combine together. What happens on the next step is I get 6x plus the 18 equals 2x plus 6 equals 8x plus 6 plus 4 equals 10. Now, that was me simplifying it, making it a little bit easier to understand. What happens next? Well, me personally, I would subtract 6x on both sides. 6x minus 6x is nothing. So I just have 18 left. Now, since I did it on both sides, I had 8x, which I take away 6x from, and I end up with a 2x plus a 10 because I didn't subtract anything from the 10. But I can subtract 10 this time. And when I subtract 10 on both sides, 18 take away 10 leaves me with 8 equals 2x. And since the 10 disappeared, or the 10 was subtracted, it disappears. Last but not least, I divide by 2. The 8 divided by 2 is 4 equals x. That's not the way I want to write it. I like having x first so I could say what x equals, and x does in fact equal 4. All right, so we got it solved. That was a lot of steps, and we kind of described it out loud. Notice some of the words that I talk about are listed on this slide. Like, for example, one of those words I said right away was distribution. We use the distributive property, which means we're multiplying into the parentheses. Hey, 3 times x plus 2 equals 3x plus 6 because we multiplied into the parentheses. I said something else about simplify, which is when we just combine the like terms right there. Okay. When we combine terms together and make them easier to understand, it is called simplify. We did that one time on the last slide. Also, we talked about addition because or subtraction because we subtracted 2 times. Notice x equals 1. If we subtract 4 on both sides, x minus 4 equals 1 minus 4. We did that. We subtracted 10 on the last slide on both sides. We even subtracted 6x as well. Notice we've got the opposites as well with multiplication and division. We've got addition and subtraction because there's properties that you can apply on both of those, okay? On each of those processes. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is this given. See, given's super important because given is always going to be the first thing we're talking about with these proofs. You'll see what I mean in just a couple of seconds. These aren't the only things that we're going to talk about either, okay? We're going to see that some of these things are grouped together. Like I see reflexive and reflexive. I see symmetric and symmetric. And not just that, but I see transitive and transitive. Those mean the same thing. The question is, what is the symbol that is being used? If I see an equal sign, it is of equality. If I see a congruent symbol, it is of congruence. Now, I'm not going to try to confuse you and say it's the addition property of congruence or anything like that, or the symmetric property of congruence or equality. And you got to figure out which one it is. Honest to goodness, it basically just says we can do it either with shapes or with numbers as we're solving things. And I do want to go over these with you just now. Like, for example, reflexive property just says anything is equal to itself. X could be equal to X. 3 could be equal to 3. A triangle ABC could be equal to triangle ABC. Hang on, that's congruent because we're comparing shapes. That means it's the same size on both shapes. What happens if we have the symmetric property? The symmetric property is talking about when numbers change sides, like ZA equals RX. Hang on, RX came first, followed by ZA. Yes. When they switch places like that, like when we did the 4 equals X, hang on, X equals 4, that's going to be the symmetric property. That's whether the shapes are congruent or whether the numbers are equal to each other. Last thing we want to talk about on here is the transitive property. And this is the one that I kind of think is a little bit hard to understand. I tend to substitute it out for substitution, actually. I'm going to use a word problem. Word problem examples are nice. If a basketball happens to weigh 5 pounds and also a soccer ball weighs 5 pounds, then a basketball weighs the same as a soccer ball. Notice I didn't start by comparing basketballs and soccer balls. I started by saying they both weigh 5 pounds. And since they equaled the same thing, they had to equal each other. Look at what happens over here with A equals B, C equals B. Hey, they both equaled B. And if I extend this just a little bit, it says that A equals C. We weren't comparing A to C before, okay? We are comparing A to C after. But because they're both compared to B and those B's are the same, you could substitute B out and put C in instead. That's why I said I might use the word substitute instead on some of the things that I do, even though it would technically be a transitive property. If you do the same thing on the worksheet, I will accept it as correct. And on a test, I would not make you choose between the two because, again, you would get in the habit of saying substitute. So I would not make you choose. I would give you one or the other and expect you to know. All right, let's go ahead and do some of these questions real quick. You're going to notice right away that there's a bunch of blanks that are going to end up needing to be filled in. Okay. Now, first and foremost, when I have this first thing here, I'm going to go ahead and go back to one of the things I said just a few moments ago. That step one is always given. All right. There's no excuses. Every time we see step one, it is going to be given because why? I was given that question at the very, very, very beginning. Look, it says given. Look, it gave me that equation again. Okay. Now notice it says that we need to prove that x equals 3. We don't have to solve for x. We already know what it is. We just have to prove that it actually is correct. How do we do that? Well, this 4x plus 6 over 2 gets multiplied by 2. Hang on, there's no 2 right here. That's where we come in. We go ahead and write that 2 that we're multiplying by on both sides. That's where we use the multiplication property because we're literally multiplying by the denominator here to get rid of that fraction because fractions are crazy. Let's get rid of them. All right. Now, once we have that, we have this canceled and these combined together. That would be an example of simplify. I wouldn't normally use simplify in the middle of this equation right here. So you're going to see me not write that from here on out when I start actually combining what math we just did. So I'll just say that this is the math that we're doing, skip, and tell me what the next step is. Like on the next thing, once we got to this 4x plus 6, notice what changed. We added some extra math here. The thing that we added was, see, there's no minus 6, but now there is a minus 6. And this 18 also gets a minus 6, so we're subtracting. There's a property that tells us that we're subtracting. Subtraction property, abbreviated. All right. Now, when we subtract right here, we're going to end up canceling these sixes out, and I'm going to end up getting a 12 because 18 minus 6 is 12. Again, this is the math that we're doing. So I'm not going to write a step right here for it. But the next thing I would do is I would divide by 4, which is where the 12 divided by 4 gets written in because we have to divide by 4 on both sides. That's why we have the division property here. Again, it says substitution at the end. I don't know why it says that. That's wrong where I got this from. I disagree with it immensely. This is where I would go ahead and just write the thing that I heard earlier about x equals 3. We use these steps to prove that x equals 3, and everything is peachy. Everything is great. This is called a 2-column proof. The left column is going to be where we actually write down each step and show our work and do the plus 2, minus 3, times 7, all that kind of goodness. The right side is where we say this is the property that we used. So mathematically, we have proven that what we are doing is correct. It is right. Let's go ahead and do another example where we're filling in the blanks like this. Now, again, I'm going to show you some of the things that I say. Oh, we're just doing the math. Don't worry about it. Okay. As you start doing this on your own, you're going to see that that simplify gets dropped crazy fast. All right. So the first thing we have is a blank that, blank number 1 is always given because it just always is. This is the equation that was given to me. Hey, what got changed? What was added mathematically from the top to the bottom? Oh, I see this minus x and this minus x here. All right. So when we do that, we are using a property that talks about subtracting exactly as the subtraction property. The subtraction property, which I abbreviated. Now we do the math to get to C. This 3x plus 8 equals 2 is just us doing the math to get here. How do we change this? Well, we just subtract 8. And we subtract 8 on this side too. 3x minus 8 cancels. 3x equals 2 minus 8 is negative 6. Okay, so I get 3x equals negative 6. That was my subtraction property that I just did. Again, there's a blank here. That's where they want me to write simplify. Again, I don't care that we write simplify there because we've already done the math. We're good. What do we do next? Hey, down here it says to divide by 3. Isn't there a property that talks about dividing? It is. All right. The property that talks about dividing is the division property. Yay, division property. And that tells me that x equals -2. All right. That's great. Everything is peachy. Everything is great. We have proven that x equals 2. The mathematical statements on the left side and the mathematical reasoning on the right side make sense. So let's go ahead and bounce across to the right side, or not the right side, the next slide, real quick, where I've got some stuff written out for you. Yes, these are intended to be fractions, where I took the 1 over 4x plus 10 equals 2 that was given to, hang on. I just said the word given because step 1 is always given, because it was the equation that was given to me that I have to solve. Now, what changed? What changed? What's missing? I see a 10. How do I get rid of that 10 that's right there? Oh, I'm supposed to subtract 10 and subtract 10 from this side too. Again, once we do that, we realize that these 10s cancel and 2 minus 10 is -8. We subtracted, so there's a property for that? Yeah, it's called the subtraction property. So it is done. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that fraction. Again, when we have fractions, I hate fractions. So we have to multiply. We have to multiply by the reciprocal, okay? 4 over 1, which is also the same as 4. So I multiply and I go, okay, times 4 on the left, times 4. And I multiply it on the right side as well with times 4. Notice it's getting bigger, okay? So I'm looking at this and I go, okay, we just multiplied. There's a property for multiplication. Yeah, literally multiplication property, okay? Okay. So we have that solved. Most of the time, you're going to be asked to solve for the properties on the right side. Okay. That's all I'm asking you to do on this question and on the next question, actually. Okay. This was given to me. This is my equation that was given. But what happens as we start working our way down? Well, this is where we have to start filling in the blanks on both sides. I'm going to have a couple of questions like this on your worksheet today. We're going to have to start doing some math. Now, me personally, I'd like to add 5x on the left side, 5x on the right side. When I add 5x, that's going to let me cancel that out. And when I add the 5x over here, it's going to let me make it a positive number. 4x plus 5x is just x. Then I have plus 10. And since those canceled, I just have it equals 18. Now, again, since I just did the math to get here, I don't have to tell me about doing the math. All I have to do is say that I used the subtraction property. Okay, subproperty. Now, on the next thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to subtract again because I'm going to have to subtract the x, excuse me, the 10 from the left side and the 10 from the right side to get the x by itself. When I minus 10, and I'm minus 10 over here, I find out that x equals 8. And you know that this was the subtraction property, okay? So subtraction property. Now I can take that and go back to the beginning, which is where we had the equations that we first solved on here. And notice I already have the equation set up from how we had solved it at the original point. We took the equation that was given to us, and then we went down here and we distributed, which means we use the distribute property. Okay. Then I did something else. Oh, yeah. I combined like terms, which is simplify. Then I did something else, which was I subtracted 6x, which is the subtraction property. I subtracted again the 10, which is another subtraction property. All right. I did something else. What was that? Oh, yeah. I divided, which is the division property. And then I switched the stuff backwards, where 4 came first. Now x comes first. Oh, by the way, that was the symmetric property. Something that is going to be given to you as part of the notes over here, okay? Here's the symmetric property, which shows you that it goes backwards and forwards. That's all you're going to have to do on the worksheet is tell me what the steps are as you're solving these equations.